Hello, this is Michael Loss and Joel Beachy and Nyle Kauffman, and we've gotten together this evening to have a little discussion on some of the guidelines or rules for people with this COVID-19 virus being around us and the effects that it's going to have on our community, and ask a few pointed questions. Most of you would know Nyle Kauffman. He's a medical doctor, been at Towncrest Internal Medicine, a hospital at Mercy Hospital. How long you been a physician in Iowa City now? 40 years?
Since 1975.
75, not quite 40 then. Oh no, 45.
Yeah.
Well, 45 years. So
yeah.
You have a long history, and most everybody that's going to see this, I suspect, knows you already. So what we want to do is talk about questions of the virus and talk about our faith and disease together. What do you have to say about this virus now? You understand far more than what Joel or I do. And Joel, jump in anytime you want.
It's a bad thing. It's the worst viral infection that we faced in the last 100 years. The Spanish flu in 1918 was probably equally serious to people in this country, but this is by far the worst thing that's happened since then. There's been bad viruses like SARS and Ebola, but they've been a lot more restricted in who they affected than this one. So this virus is causing serious illness. It's 2 to 3 times more likely to be spread among people than the influenza virus is. It's 10 to 30 times more likely to be fatal than the influenza virus. And to date, we have no good treatments identified. Approximately 15% of the people that are 70 or 75 and older die from this thing when they get infected. So it's a very serious disease, and the only way we really have to cope with keeping it from spreading rapidly is to socially isolate ourselves. And as we've heard, that's the recommendation of what we're supposed to do. Our lifestyles are not used to this kind of thing, being socially isolated.
Now, can you say a little bit more about what social isolation means?
Well, in its extreme form, ideally we would see nobody.
Except at a computer.
We wouldn't get close to anybody. In general, you're not supposed to get closer than 6 feet to anybody, but even that could have a little bit of hazard. So the more you can stay home, stay by yourself, and avoid other people, the safer you'll be.
Okay, my question relates to that. What happens when you start to go stir crazy or have cabin fever?
Well, you can go outside and walk around. You can go for a drive in your car. You can go to the park and wander around. Those kind of things are absolutely safe.
Okay.
We do need to go to this grocery store and buy food periodically. And if you're old and at risk with health problems, it's best to send somebody young, because the young, if they get infected, are far less likely to become seriously ill with it.
Well, I was told yesterday by the elders at Wellman that J-Dubs will deliver food for people.
They will.
They'll buy. You can buy it. Call in, give your order. You tell about it, Joel. You know more about it than I do.
Yeah, that they have volunteers that are getting the groceries around, and they'll actually, if somebody comes to the store, they can bring them out to the car and put them in the car for you. Or they've also they deliver to the house, and the fees related to that have been waived by the city of Kelowna and a number of area churches that have been contributing to that. So it's free of charge. So it's a worthwhile service.
It'd be something to do then right now.
It would be something to do, definitely.
Right. Well, You said there's different precautions that need to be watched for middle age. Now, I've seen on CNN that there's a 12-year-old girl that's on the respirator. I saw on the Gazette online this evening a 27-year-old man in Cedar Rapids died today with COVID-19. That's what it says in the obituary anyway, that they're not listing him on CNN or anything like that right now as a death in Iowa. Are there different restrictions if you get younger, or should everybody just pay attention?
Well, it's wisest if everybody pays attention, because you get infected. You go out and about, you get infected, then you're likely to spread it to somebody else who. And one of the hazards of this disease is you may spread it before you actually become symptomatic.
Right.
Contagious.
Right.
So it's wisest to avoid all contact.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It seems like there's a little more serious illness among younger people here in the U.S. than there was in China.
Right.
And that's certainly true in Italy as well. Seems to be more serious.
Yeah. So you need to be concerned about your grandchildren going to friends' houses and things like that.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
All right. And when our Matt and Haley were here today, and they stood 10 feet out in the yard and we talked through the glass door, that should not be any problem, should it?
That's safe. That should be safe.
And we went to their house last week and they stood in the garage. We were 10 feet out in the driveway. Safe too. But we haven't seen her and since Christmas when she went back to college. And so, we gave virtual hugs to her like that. So go ahead, Joel, with your questions.
Yeah. We don't have a way of predicting how far along this is going to go, how bad it's going to get. What are some of the things that you're doing now and advising your family and others to stay safe?
Well, just what we talked about, avoiding other people as much as possible. That's the important thing.
Mm-hmm. How about you? Are you going out much?
Not much. I went to town today to get a few necessary things, but it's the first time I've been in town for probably 10 days or 2 weeks. So
Really?
Sure.
And mostly staying at home.
Okay.
You have a farm to get out and about on. City slickers have a little bit more difficulty with that.
I have sheep to take care of and lambs to feed every day, so gets my attention.
Are you getting new ones right now?
Yes.
Well, I know. For us, Christine, the boys, and I, we have been doing walks fairly often through town and stuff. But we haven't. Every time we've done a walk, we haven't met anyone on the street, and we just go to the park and then walk back home. And gets us outside in the fresh air, though, and
sure
relieves some of the cabin fever.
Sure.
Well, I go at 7:15 in the morning usually. Although yesterday I went in the afternoon, and there's a few people out and about, but we cross paths and don't bother. Yesterday I was walking down Raritt Road, and I was coming up on a woman, and she saw me coming up on her, and she stepped off the sidewalk. I was still 20 feet behind her. She stepped off the sidewalk, went 10 feet into the grass, turned her back to me, and then let me walk by, and then she followed back about 10 or 15 feet. And I couldn't figure out why she was getting off the sidewalk. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh yeah, she's concerned about me being too close to her.
Sure.
Because I was going to pass her. So, well, one of the issues now that I've thought a lot about in the past few weeks is probably the most difficult question that I want to ask is, as this virus circled the globe, how do we connect our Christian faith and belief in God's able to take care of things like this with this terrible virus? How do we connect those two things?
Well, that's a theological question, so that's what the preachers are supposed to tell. But
That's why I just said I've been wrestling with this the past few weeks. That's why I want some advice.
sure. Okay. Well, I have a book that's old. It was published in 1975. Healing, Prayer, or Pills by Jonathan G. Yoder.
Mhm.
And it's just a little, it's not a long book. It's got 50 pages, 56 pages, but Dr. Yoder discusses this issue. Why is there sickness and illness in this world? And the conclusion he comes to is we are made subject to disease and decay and death. We all die sometime. Even Lazarus, who was resurrected from the dead,
That's this week's sermon on the Lenten series.
apparently died later.
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
it's not around anymore. And so it just seems that that's the way we're made. So we're destined to this, things happening to us. Now, there are various theological views on what God has control over. And Dr. Yoder's conclusion is that and all the sickness and disease that we're afflicted with is not a punishment on us by God for what we've done, but it's just part of the world we live in and the way we're made. What God does do for us is walks with us
Amen.
through our daily trials and tribulations, whatever they are. And we may not be spared from the illness, but God is with us as we sit and worry about the illness. God is with us if we get sick. If we die, God is there to take care of us in the afterlife. And there are miracles that happen. He agrees with that, and I would agree with that. But in general, we are just subject to what happens in this world, what happens around us. And I don't think this is a plague sent by God. There are things we can do that will help us benefit our spiritual life. We got opportunities for growth in a spiritual realm during this time of isolation. And if we don't take advantage of it, then that's to our loss during this time. But we can trust that God is with us and will comfort us and help us.
Right. Yeah. I agree pretty much with that. The only thing that I would add is I think the disease and sickness and sin and viruses came from the fall. It wasn't part of God's plan or creation.
Yes.
And that's where I'm at. Joel, you
Well, I was just going to say that one of the things that I find, I mean, you see it online and you see it from a lot of people is referencing the Psalms, that the Psalms help to express some of the feelings that we have. It reminds us from where we put our trust and whom we put our trust. And also, though, that the Psalms really express a lot of the anger and frustration and fear that we can have in this lifetime. And so that those emotions, they're okay. And that God is big enough to handle that we can give this over to God and God will hold it and be with us.
right.
I was thinking of the Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And yeah, just that reminder that's where we put our faith and that's where we put our hope, is in God.
Right.
Any other thoughts or?
Anything else you want to say, Nyle, that you could want to add to this?
Well, this is just a phenomenon of a lifetime. I would hope. I hope we don't soon have another episode like this.
Right.
Obviously, it's very disruptive to our life. It's very disruptive to our country. We can look at the Chinese, and they feel like they've gotten ahead of the rapid spread of this thing. They practice this social isolation, and the spread of this disease has calmed down remarkably. And so there is hope for us.
Right.
There's hope that we will get through it.
Right. Right.
The more care we take, the more likely we will be able to make it through without difficulty.
Joel, you have anything to finish up?
No, I just appreciate Nyle taking the time, and you, Michael, for helping to set this up. And yeah, just a good word.
Yeah. I just want to thank you too, Nyle, for taking your time this evening, and glad we could do this. And it's good to see you this way, even though we can't have coffee together. Like, you're only a half a mile from my house. I like to swing by and say hello. Although I did see a thing on Facebook today. Somebody said, I'll invite you out to dinner at lunch tomorrow. We'll go to a fast food restaurant and we'll pull up next to each other like cops do and eat on our own cars and talk. That would be one way to do it. So, all right. Well, thank you much. I'm going to stop the recording right now.